Hey, I hope this isn't too repetitive by now. I'm hoping you're like saying this bicarbonate ion carbonic acid buffer system in your sleep. I'm just trying to find my marker. All right, the first part of this final exam question is to please write out the bicarbonate ion carbonic acid buffer system. So we know we add water plus carbon dioxide to get carbonic acid. And we have to label this water, carbon dioxide. It'd help if you'd spell it right. Carbonic acid. So when water and carbon dioxide form and connect to one another, when they combine, they form carbonic acid, which breaks down to release the hydrogen ion. That is what acids do in solution. And the bicarbonate ion. So that's number one of this question. If you get this right, that's great. Now, a patient has uncontrolled diabetes. How could this affect their blood pH? Well, blood pH is supposed to be between 7.35 and 7.45. What's going to happen with someone with uncontrolled pH is we're going to drop and become more acidic. How? Anytime we have more hydrogen ions, our pH is going to drop. That's the relationship. If you have more hydrogen ions, your pH is going to drop. So, how could uncontrolled diabetes affect blood pH? Well, the patient breaks down fats. You do not have to say this whole story. What I'm writing over here right now, this is good to say. The patient breaks down fats for energy, and this releases hydrogen ions into the blood. Now, what is it about fat when you're breaking down fat? Why would that cause you to release hydrogen ions? Well, fats are made, triglycerides are the fat that we store in our body, and they have a triglyceride head, and they have 3 fatty acid tails. Well, when you break down the fats, you release substances called ketones. So the patient breaks down fats for energy. This releases ketones, just so you have that word in your brain. This is ketones. And ketones, basically, think of them as hydrogen ions because they add to the hydrogen ion load. So here's what we're doing. A patient has uncontrolled diabetes. How could this affect their blood pressure? Patient breaks down fats to release hydrogen ions into the blood, and therefore pH does what? We're adding more hydrogen ions here. What happens to pH? pH drops. The patient becomes more acidic. Okay, now it says, how exactly is the buffer system overwhelmed? That's the next part of this question. Well, we know a buffer system prevents radical shifts in pH. We don't want to add, if we add a little bit of hydrogen ions over here, it should be fine. Should be fine. But if we keep adding hydrogen ions, when we add more to this right side of this entire equation, think of this as part 1, 2, and part 3. When we add to part 3, these hydrogen ions, they have to be absorbed somewhere. This system is in, I should draw these arrows in both directions. This system is in equilibrium normally, but if we add too many hydrogen ions, it's going to be thrown out of equilibrium. And what we do if we add to number 3, we're going to shift this equation. The next one, exactly how is the buffer system overwhelmed? You add hydrogen ions and this whole equation up here, which would be the bicarbonate ion carbonic acid equation. And the equation shifts to the left. What does that mean? Okay, we're adding hydrogen ions here. We get rid of them by shifting. We're going to the left here and making more carbonic acid. Well, we keep adding more and more and more hydrogen ions because we keep breaking down ketones. So they have to go somewhere, so we make carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is not going to break down and go to the right here because we're already exceeded our capacity on this 3. And so now we have a lot of 2. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to go still to the left, and we're going to release water and carbon dioxide. So we're binding up our hydrogen ions. Remember, it's hydrogen ions that really contribute to pH, and we're combining them to make carbonic acid. A lot of people might say, why is it that if we have an acid, carbonic acid, we're making acid, why isn't the system more acidic? Because acids aren't acidic. Acids add to acidity. If the hydrogen ion is bound into this molecule right here, it's not contributing to pH. Only free hydrogen ions can contribute to pH. So that's that. Now, if the pH drops due to excessive hydrogen ions, what is that called? I'll tell you what that's called. In this case, it's our metabolism. That's causing this. So it's called metabolic acidosis. That is what is happening. Which body system can correct this change in the dropping pH? Well, in this case, if we've got a metabolic acidosis, there are actually 2 body systems that can take over. The body systems that can take over are the renal and respiratory systems. What is this correction called? Well, it depends. It depends. If the renal system takes over, it's called renal compensation. And if the respiratory system comes to the rescue, it's called respiratory compensation. Compensation. It's such a hard word to write. So how does this body system accomplish pH? If the renal system, if we're in renal compensation, what it does is the kidneys excrete hydrogen ions. They also retain bicarbonate ions, meaning they keep it in the system and don't let it go out in the urine. But we're going to focus on the kidneys secrete hydrogen ions. That means they put the hydrogen ions in urine. And then the hydrogen ions leave the body through urine, and we have fewer hydrogen ions. In this case, what you're seeing up here, this specific example, where hydrogen is combined with carbonic acid to form carbon dioxide and water. In the respiratory case, what's going to happen is you will hyperventilate. The patient hyperventilates to blow off carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide. I like to focus on respiratory compensation for metabolic acidosis, but in reality, the kidneys are also working to secrete hydrogen ions. Okay, that is the answer to the question. How does this body system accomplish? Like I said, if it's renal compensation, the kidneys secrete hydrogen ions. And if the patient gets to a really bad point and starts hyperventilating, the respiratory system has taken over to blow off carbon dioxide because we're making lots of this. And the way we get rid of carbon dioxide is through our respiratory system. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know.